Second question, I always have psychological problems before big competition and my nerves get the better of me. Mostly I have fear of failure and disappointing others. Maybe you can give me any tips on, or just a few words to calm a fighter down before fights. Now, listen, this is such a common question. I probably got this question 50 times in the last week. So I'm going to answer it now. Okay. So, Mikas, thank you for sending in that question. It is a very, very deep question. There are so many ways to approach it. Obviously, in MMA, MMA is without a doubt the scariest sport today. There's no scarier sport unless you go back to the gladiator days, unless you go talking about warfare. And in terms of sports, there's nothing more scary, in my opinion, than actual fighting. Okay, fighting. So we deal with this on a regular basis. Of course, fighters have nerves. Fighters are human. They have the same emotions as everybody else. They go through fear, nerves, anxiety. How do we deal with it? Well, number one, I always say this, okay, to perform without fear, to perform and feel that great feeling of confidence, there's a two-part process. One, it's all physical. I always say the training is 99% physical, 1% mental, far from your event. So don't jump the gun just yet. Okay, so 6 months before my fight, 3 months before my fight, it's all about the physical. Am I training? Am I putting in the rounds? Am I getting the subs? Am I landing the shots in sparring? Am I doing everything right? Am I showing extreme competence? The more competence I show in the practice room, the more confidence I will have coming up to the fight. Now, the closer and closer I get to the fight, the more it becomes mental and the less it becomes physical. So the night before the fight, it's 99% mental now and 1% physical, because you're not going to be training. You're not going to be adding more endurance. You're not going to be adding more physical strength the night before. So you understand, 3 months before, it's all about the physical training and 1% mental. Why? It's 1% mental because there's very little stress. The fight is far from now. The danger is not immediate. As the fight gets closer and closer, till right before you're about to walk out to your event, now it's become 99% mental, 1% physical. You're not going to be doing sprint work 5 minutes before your match, are you? No, you're not. You're going to be in your head. So the mind becomes more and more important the closer and closer we get to the event. Whether you're giving a speech or you're taking a driver's test or you're competing or you're fighting, whatever it is, it's more mentally stressful, obviously, the closer that you get. So it becomes more and more mental. But to ease this mental stress, you have to have first built a lot of confidence in the practice room. So whether you're practicing driving before your driver's test or you're rehearsing your speech before you actually give your speech, the more competent you are, the more times you've done something with success, the more confident you will be. So I always tell my students that confidence is competence. The more competence I develop in the practice room, the more confidence I should have. Not that I will have, I should have. I should. Now there's another element. Remember I said it's a two-part process. Now, if you show incompetence in the practice room, if in the practice room you're getting taken down, you're getting choked out, you're losing all your matches, you're losing all your rounds, you're just doing horrible in the practice room, and you're confident on fight night, I think something's wrong with you. First of all, I think you have a false confidence. I don't believe in your confidence. I think your confidence is a lie. I think it's a mask. You're just pretending to be confident. There's a confidence on top of a layer. There's a layer of confidence on top of an ocean of doubt and self-criticism and disbelief. Okay, so it's not real confidence. Real confidence, like George told me once before a fight. George, I remember he told me, he asked me, he said, you know what the best feeling is before a fight? I said, what? He said, having real confidence. And I was like, I totally agree. That must be the greatest feeling. Knowing that you're super prepared, that the guy you're fighting doesn't have the answers to beat you. He doesn't have the answers to the questions you're going to pose on him on fight night, and you're very confident you're going to beat him. That must be a great feeling. So what I was saying is a two-part process. One, you have to show extreme competence to actually have authentic, true, 100% real confidence. And then the other process, because there are guys who are really good in the practice room. They show extreme competence, and then on fight night they panic. And what I'm about to share with you guys, it's an anecdote. It's not a logical argument. It's not an empirical fact that you can verify. It's not a scientific study. It's just my intuitive observation over the years, over training countless athletes. Over the years, this is not verifiable scientifically. It's not a logical argument. For those of you out there who know your epistemology, you know what I'm drawing on my intuition, my years and years of experience. And this is a very, very a legitimate way of knowing something. Intuition is a very legitimate way of knowing something, especially with somebody who has a lot of experience. So let me share my experience with you and just take it as that. I think that if you take what I'm about to share with you and try it in the real world, you'll find a lot of success with these little tips. So what it is basically, we've all heard of fight or flight. In psychology, the term is fight, flight, or freeze. They shortened it to fight or flight, but the actual original term was fight, flight, or freeze. Okay. So now I majored in philosophy. In philosophy, I specialize in Greek philosophy. Greek philosophy is the father of psychology. If you take any course in psychology, it originates with Socrates, because Socrates was the know thyself philosophy. It wasn't philosophy about the external world. Aristotle was more of a biologist, scientist, natural scientist, what they would call, the Greeks would have called a natural scientist. He was more interested in the world out there. He was more interested in the world, studying animals, frogs, nature, etc., the world out there, the bodily, the stars, the heavenly bodies, etc. Socrates was more interested about the mind, self-reflection, logic, reasoning, etc. Okay, now Aristotle also, but to a lesser degree. Okay, so we have fight, flight, or freeze. Now, of course, on fight night or the day of your competition, you want to take action. That's what fight is. You definitely don't want to run. You don't want to flight. Okay, you don't want to take off running, and you definitely don't want to freeze. Now, this is very beneficial for us in nature. Now, for instance, if you're coming across a predator in nature, it may be wise to run if you can seek shelter. If you can run to your shelter, close the door behind you, and keep that animal outside, get away from the hungry wolves out there. And if you were able to run to the door, the distance is closer than they can get to you. Maybe it's a wise choice to run. Maybe it's a wise choice to freeze. If you're walking in the grass and you see a snake, maybe it's very wise for you just to freeze. And these elements, these deeply programmed elements in our mind, were very beneficial to us in nature. However, on fight night, I've seen many guys do all three. I've seen guys fight, no problem there. I've seen guys run in a fight. Their instincts just get the better of them. They want to fight back, but they just find themselves backpedaling. They find themselves literally running a few steps to try to disengage and just keep avoiding the fight at all costs. And then when you get them between rounds and you try to, knock some sense into them, you try to get them to move forward, it's just as blank. Their instincts are overrun. Now, I've had that experience as well. And I've had the experience of guys freezing. They do so good in the practice room, and then on fight night, they get there and they get stage fright. They really literally do nothing. They throw no punches. They just hold on. They're like frozen. They are not working. They're not working. They're not reacting. And it's a deep, at least as it appears to me, to be a deep psychological grip on their skills. There's a mental grip holding back their skills. I've seen their skills in the practice room. I've seen the guy score double legs. I've seen the guy throw punches. I've seen the guy, strike. I've seen him do 100, and then he freezes on fight night. Now, again, this happens to very few athletes, a very small amount, maybe, a small percentage, 1 or 2%, but I've seen it. I've coached thousands of fights. I've done it. I've been doing it for so many years. And in my opinion, when you're in the locker room or before you go out to give your speech or before you take your driver's test, what chokes you up is that nervous energy you have is just too much energy. So you're sitting there, you're about to fight, you're about to perform in whatever stage you're performing in. I don't care if you have a job interview or whatever it is. If you have too much energy, if you're too stressed and you don't ventilate that energy, you don't expend that energy, it might backfire on you. You might end up fleeing or freezing. Now, if you end up fighting, that's great. That's what we want you to do. You want to do it. I want you to do it. Your training partners, we all want you to fight. We all want you to go out there and execute, do your best. However, You might freeze like a deer in the headlights, or you might run, get the sweats, and you wanna run away. Now, in my opinion, the answer is as simple as once you start feeling anxiety, get up and start moving. Get up and go spend that energy. If you have a fight and you're in the locker room and you start feeling stressed, get up, start shadowboxing. Get up. You have too much energy, and that having too much energy, it will feel like anxiety. Too much energy feels like anxiety. And I've had that personal experience. I had a huge fear of flying. And why did I have such a huge fear of flying? Well, one is when I'm sitting in the airplane and I start feeling anxiety, I cannot get up and start shadowboxing. I cannot go and do some drilling. I cannot lift some weights. I cannot go do some sprints. I cannot expend any energy. I have to sit here in my chair. And that energy, that stress level starts to choke me up. And my heart started racing and I started sweating and all. I had a real phobia, a legitimate phobia of flying. And one day I'll tell you guys how I got over it. Now, I've always faced my fears. Even though I was petrified of flying, even though I had a severe fear of flying, I always got on that plane. I never succumbed to my fears. And now today I fly much more comfortably. I fly, 30, 40 times a year. I get on 30, 40 flights a year. But I had a tremendous, tremendous phobia. But again, I'll leave that story for another day. I don't want to go off on a tangent here. When you're in the locker room, you need to expend that energy. Don't wait for half an hour before your fight. Don't wait for an hour before a fight. If you get to the arena and it's 4 hours before your fight and you're feeling nervous, start shadowboxing. Start going through your warm-up routine. Just take the edge off. Expend some energy. If you have a big exam and you're really stressed out about it, jump on the treadmill. Run for 10, 20 minutes. You will feel invigorated. You will feel normal. You'll take a shower after. You'll feel great. Your nerves will have calmed down. There's a chemical process going on inside your mind. Your brain doesn't know if you want to run, if you want to freeze, or you want to fight. In my opinion, this is just an intuitive sense I have. Okay, again, this is not a logical argument. This is not a scientific study. There's no way to verify this scientifically. There's no way for me to give you a logical argument. This is just my intuitive sense. When somebody's choked up, when somebody is too stressed, and you don't give them a way to vent it, you don't let them physically exert the energy, burn that energy, take that edge off. In my opinion, they may freeze on you or they may run because they're feeling such discomfort. Now, I've never had a single fighter, now think about this, I've never had a single fighter in between rounds tell me he's nervous. Once we're fighting, once the action is going, I've never had a single fighter tell me, Coach, I'm too nervous to go out for round 2. Never, not once. However, I have fighters that I've literally slapped in the face because they freeze and I want to take them out of their shock. And sometimes the slap between rounds wakes them up. It does. And it also hasn't in the past. Okay, but I've had better results snapping people out of it by kind of shaking them a bit and kind of snapping out of it because they go into a mode in their mind. And then later when they watch the fight, they're like, I can't believe I did that. I don't remember any of this. I don't remember any. So that's what they'll tell me. I don't remember any of this. I don't remember backpedaling. I don't remember running back. I don't remember shutting down like this. What was I doing? I lost total. I have no idea what they'll tell me. The words what I usually hear is, I had no idea what happened. Now, in my opinion, the reason is their deepest instinctual reflexes kicked in. Now, your body doesn't know if you want to fight, run, or freeze. You got to tell it. So once you start moving around, your body's like, hey, we're in a fight. Again, this is anecdotal. This is my own intuitive understanding of the human body, the human psyche. If you're nervous and you start moving around, you start shadow boxing, you start pummeling, you start doing your armbar routine, your body's like, oh, we're fighting here. We're fighting. I've never had a guy do a long warm-up and freeze. I've had guys freeze, and then after figuring this out, going deep inside my mind and like kind of observing and really questioning, I was like, you know what? The guy just froze because he's choked up with too much nerves. Let's spend that energy. That's why the body, if anybody's ever competed before an event, you feel this surge of energy, you feel this rush of energy. Now, some professionals, some athletes report a down of energy, like a lethargic feeling. And I'll talk about that another day, okay? But a lot of fighters, most fighters will say they have this adrenaline pump. And you got to take that edge off. You don't want to be, in my opinion, you don't want to be too high on energy and you don't want to be too low. Too low, some guys are napping before the match or a fight. Some guys literally go in the back room and sleep. And they're like, wake me up 20 minutes before. Some guys are like that. Believe it or not, there are guys like that. And in my opinion, those guys, they're slow starters. You know, they get up and they're like jabbing in round one, and by the time they get warmed up, the fight's over. Slow starters, in my opinion, they need to warm up. Do a vigorous warm up, dynamic warm up. They need some plyometric work. If you are a slow starter, I will make you do explosive warm up. If you're a nervous guy and you freeze or you run in fights, like you're the type of guy who gets overly nervous, I will also use the same method. I will bring your nerves down by making you exercise, getting you a second wind. I'll make the guy do 2-3 rounds of pads, hard pads. Like I'm talking about 5 minutes hard. Like he did a whole fight. If the guy's a really nervous guy, I'll make him do a whole fight. Give him a 45-minute break. Let him get his second wind. And then I'm really confident he's gonna throw in the fight. He's gonna live up to his potential. He's gonna live up to what he did in the practice room. His skills will now translate. I've had a lot of success with this method. Try it out. So my answer to you is a very simple one. Let your body know it's time to fight, not time to run, not time to freeze. And the way you're gonna do that is by simulating a fight. Your body will know that you are fighting. Don't forget, the human system is a brilliant one. It's a brilliant machine. The human body is a brilliant machine. Your body will know when it's time to fight as you are fighting. So just mimic fighting. The edge will go down and you will fight to your true potential. Make sure you've built tremendous amount of skill and confidence and competence, and that'll translate to confidence. And on fight night, don't let the nerves of the fight night get to you. I like to rehearse I like to tell my fighters, rehearse imagery. You know, all fighters, mostly all fighters do that. I gotta say, like 80 and 90% of fighters closer to the fight, because we're doing less physical training. It's now time to get in your head and counter your opponent in your head and set up your double leg in your mind. Just rehearse it in your mind over and over again, what you're gonna do on fight night. And on fight night, when it's 99% mental, the warm-up is huge. And do an extended warm-up. Fatigue yourself in the practice room. If you're overly nervous, in the locker room, fatigue yourself in the locker room. Take a break and get your second wind. I promise you will perform a lot better if you do it this way. Why? Because it'll feel more like a sparring. It'll feel less like a fight. And there is a lot more to know about why we get nervous. Okay, of course, there's a lot more to know. And we're going to talk about this non-stop on this channel. We're going to talk about fighting and the mind non-stop on this channel. But don't forget, your deepest instinct is to fight, flight, or freeze. Program yourself to fight, and I'm sure you will find a lot of success doing that.